You know, the New York Yankees are playing lights out right now. They just took a series from the Los Angeles Dodgers. Aaron Judge could hit 60 home runs. He's playing lights out right now. The pitching staff is amazing. They're first place in the American League. Things are looking really good in the Bronx. What I'm saying is that you really had to screw up around this time of year for a minicamp story to be the #1 story in the New York media. Welcome, everybody, to JJ9 News, where we talk all things NFL all the time. I'm Jarrell Aaron 9, representing the 904 from the 602, and today we are talking about this team behind me right here, the New York Jets. Notice all the new Jets helmets that we have this season. Well, that's because the Jets have a lot of primetime games and a lot of national games this year. 7 of their first 11 games are in front of a national audience in some capacity, and a big reason why, maybe the #1 reason why, because they weren't that good last year, is because of their star quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, who only played 4 snaps last year before getting injured and being out for the rest of the season. They think he's going to be good to go for all of 2024, so the Jets are going to be a team to watch, and that even applies for minicamp, because Aaron Rodgers, who's made a lot of headlines this offseason, has made some more headlines by not being at minicamp, which is mandatory and leaves you subject to fines per the CBA. Minicamp is mandatory, and if you're not there, the team can punish you as a result. Minicamp is very important to a lot of these teams. But what makes this interesting is that Aaron Rodgers' absence from minicamp was unexcused, but apparently the New York Jets are totally fine with it because Robert Saleh is not a good head coach. This according to a report from Rich Kamini, who said that Aaron Rodgers is not attending minicamp. It is not excused per Robert Saleh. Therefore, he is subject to fine. Saleh said Rodgers had a previous engagement, an event that is important to him. But obviously, Rodgers did not get clearance from Saleh to miss camp for that reason. But then you get this tweet from Antoine V. Staley, who then added that Robert Saleh says he's okay with Aaron Rodgers missing minicamp, although he wants everyone to participate. So let me get this straight. This absence is unexcused. It's a mandatory event. You're not happy about it, but you're not going to do anything about it? What does that even mean? All right, the word mandatory means that you have to be there. It is required by a rule. It is obligatory, and there is a punishment to hammer this home if you do not comply. As an example, it is mandatory that you comply with this court order to appear. If you do not, you will be arrested. Or let's say you work for a pizza company. They make a lot of deliveries. It is mandatory that you work on Super Bowl Sunday. It's our busiest day of the year. We need all hands on deck. If you do not, you will be fired. Excused absence, because obviously stuff happens, means that you have a legitimate, pre-approved reason for not being there. Unexcused means that you don't have a legitimate pre-approved reason for not being there. As an example, let's say you're in a high school choir. It is mandatory that you be at the concert. Otherwise, you get punished with a bad grade. And that's especially true if you have a solo, which is kind of equivalent to the NFL having a quarterback. Now, there are excused absences, reasons for not being at the concert. I, unfortunately, have dealt with a few of those being in choir. Sickness, I usually got sick around that time of year. A death in the family, if you're in the hospital, all those are excused reasons. But just didn't feel like going, you had something else, you didn't want to do it, that's completely unexcused. So with that being said, how can something be an unexcused absence during something that is mandatory and it's totally fine? That seems to contradict the entire point. That seems to contradict all of your words you're saying. You want everyone to participate? It's mandatory. Mandatory means you have to be there. You need everyone to participate. Hence the word mandatory. Want is optional. Need is mandatory. It's like a teacher. You want the students who aren't doing well to show up for extra help, but you need everyone to be there for the final exam. There's a major difference. Want implies it's not a big deal if you miss. Need implies it is a big deal. Like wanting a Cybertruck, I don't know why I would want that car in the first place, but like wanting a Cybertruck, that's a want, versus needing shelter. You need that to survive. This is kindergarten stuff. These words wants and needs, excused, unexcused, this is basic 5-year-old stuff. And the head coach of the New York Jets doesn't seem to understand that. Now, look, the concern is obviously not about Rodgers not being at minicamp. I personally don't care. A 20-year vet and a future Hall of Famer not being there doesn't mean that he's going to stink or that there's strife in the organization or anything like that. I'm not going to make this a story about how Rodgers is defying Robert Saleh or trying to pressure him or he's disgruntled or he wants a new contract. This is not about that whatsoever. The concern is how Robert Saleh framed this in a way that makes it seem like a wimp with no backbone and like a clueless head coach that has no idea what he's doing. Because here's the thing. One thing that humans learn very quickly with psychology, you learn this at a very young age, is that if you issue an ultimatum and the person doesn't follow through on that ultimatum, it is meaningless. You learn that when you're 4, you're picking on your sister, and your parents say stop or you go to timeout. You keep picking on your sister, they don't send you to timeout. All right, those words are meaningless. I can just keep picking on my sister. Or in a relationship, when you're older, a man has a drinking problem. The woman in the relationship says, I'm sick of this. If you have one more beer, we're through. You need to quit. You have a beer, and she does nothing about it. Immediately, you think in the back of your mind, okay, we're going to stay together. She's not following through on that punishment. If you say that something is mandatory, someone misses the mandatory thing, and you do nothing about it, other players on the team are going to see this, and they're naturally going to want to test the boundaries and not take what the coach says seriously. Aaron Rodgers, same way. Oh, it's mandatory? I missed it, but it doesn't matter even though it wasn't excused? All right, what if I do this? What if I do this? What if I do this? And you see how we go down that rabbit hole. Now, all Robert Saleh had to do here, very easy fix. All he had to do was say that Rodgers was excused. If he just said that this was an excused absence, this is a non-story. This is not the number one thing being talked about in the NFL right now. This is not the number one thing being talked about in New York sports right now. And I'm not doing this video. It's not like anyone was going to press him on the issue. All Robert Saleh had to do was say Aaron Rodgers was excused from minicamp today with a personal issue that we talked about. That's it. Boom. It's a non-story. Like the numerous examples of other players who missed minicamp. But by saying that this was unexcused, but you're okay with it, you made it seem like he was defying orders and hurting his teammates, and then you made it seem like minicamp isn't actually mandatory, it's not that important, and you make it seem like players can just walk all over you, and that your words have no meaning because mandatory doesn't actually mean mandatory. And what's crazy about this is that Robert Saleh is not a first-year head coach. He's a 4th-year head coach. He's entering his 4th season in the Big Apple. New York media is ruthless. The New York sports media might be the most brutal sports media of anywhere in the country. Boston's up there, Philly's up there, but New York is by far number 1. You had all the time in the world to choose your words carefully, and you knew this question was coming. You had to know this. If you spoke with Rodgers beforehand about this, you had from that very moment, whenever that was, up until now to plan your answer. And again, you had to know the question was coming because Aaron Rodgers is the most recognizable player in the NFL in the eyes of a lot of people. Maybe Travis Kelce is now, maybe Patrick Mahomes, but Aaron Rodgers is definitely top 3. You had to know that someone was going to notice that Aaron Rodgers wasn't practicing. There's no one wearing the number 8 jersey. There's no one looking like Aaron Rodgers in camp. That's odd. Why is that the case? Someone had to know that. That means one of two things for Robert Saleh by giving this answer. Either this was the best answer you could come up with, in which case you have no idea how to prepare for the moment, and I have to question you on how you prepare in other aspects of your life, including how you prepare as a head coach, or this question somehow totally caught you off guard, in which case you have no idea how to prepare for the moment, and I have to question again how you prepare in other aspects of your life, including how you are as a head coach, because this was such an obvious question with an obvious answer, and you completely blew it. If you were fine with Rodgers not being there, if you talked it over with him and you knew this was going to happen, all you had to do was say that he was excused. Or you could have said, you know what, it wasn't excused, we're going to deal with it internally. If you were that unhappy about it, okay, that's a fine answer too, if you want to swing that way. But to see this and say, oh, it was unexcused, I don't approve of it, but it's totally fine. I know it's mandatory, but We just want our guys to be there. They don't have to be there. You lose all credibility and all authority as a head coach. And this is not a good sign for Robert Saleh as he enters a pivotal year in year 4. If they make the playoffs, he's done, regardless of if Rodgers plays all 17 games or not. And this is not a good start to year 4. This press conference, if it's any indication, not a good start to year 4, but we will see what happens with Aaron Rodgers going forward when training camp starts in July, because obviously he's not going to be at minicamp due to this excused or unexcused absence, which Robert Saleh kind of blew. We really don't know what's going on here. But what are your thoughts on this whole thing? Do you think Robert Saleh is a good head coach? Do you think he deserved to get a shot in 2023 for his 4th season? Do you think he will be fired at the end of the season? How do you think the Jets are going to do? What are your thoughts on Aaron Rodgers in general as a QB of the Jets? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below. A lot to dissect here. And that is going to do for this episode of JG9 News. Be sure you like and subscribe. It helps the channel out a lot. And be sure to check out my main channel, Aaron9, where we talk all things NFL history all the time. Until next time, this is Aaron9 signing off. And as always, go Jags.